Yes, I managed to get a Switch 2 at launch, and before launch, I actually had a couple accessories lined up for this, most notably a screen protector, a microSD express card, and just a basic case. This is Moomba's sort of like thin, basic case. It can hold 12 games and the system, and while this is a nice case, I did want something more substantial. Enter RDS Industries. I actually had the very first, original case that they made for the Nintendo Switch. In fact, here is that original case. It's been sitting in storage for years because I just haven't used it because it doesn't really fit the Switch OLED. So yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about their basic carry case, as well as their deluxe deep case. So this is the case for all of these cases, but the zipper is very smooth gliding. And opening it up, you have, the spot where the system sits. Do I need to actually bump up the ISO a little bit? I think I do. This flap that covers the screen actually holds 6 games on this side and 6 games on the other side right here. They get sandwiched together in between, and of course where the system sits, but underneath that is where you are supposed to keep the Joy-Con straps, and RDS actually sells a external little game card case that is supposed to perfectly fit just right in here. I don't have that, so I just have a short USB-C to C cable. And then with the deluxe deep case, things get a little more interesting. So here's where the system sits, and as you can see, there are these red bumpers, which the basic case also comes with, to fit the original Switch and Switch OLED. The game card slots are positioned a little bit differently with this, but you can still carry 12. And then yeah, where under the system sits is where you're supposed to fit the Joy-Con straps. Now, I have seen people sort of just put them in like this, but they kind of flop around. It almost feels like you're supposed to actually push and squeeze them in there, and then take the cord and just sort of wrap it in there, and then the same with the other one. And then this side is where things get a little bit more interesting, because as you can see, you can just fit the dock along with the AC adapter. You might be able to also fit the HDMI cable in here, but it's a bit of a tight fit. Yeah, the deluxe deep case does come with this mesh Velcro pouch for the AC adapter. Just put that in and close that up. Also, RDS kind of advertises this setup as reverse, where the dock is down here and the AC adapter is up here. So one thing is that the Amazon page actually shows just the dock for the OLED, not for the Switch 2. And also the Amazon listing shows the Switch 2 actually being in the case, but this cover that comes on the case doesn't show the Switch 2 actually being in the case at all. Because this is just a Velcro divider wall, you can remove it and reposition it however you want to. Because this can also just fit a controller as well, except with the way that this bungee is, I don't like how it doesn't entirely securely fit a controller. It almost feels like RNG, where I'll go and secure it down, and then just a couple seconds later it just springs up, so that's why I've just given up on trying to fit a Pro controller in here. Again, even in the Amazon product page, you can see that Velcro fighting for its life. But also, I have this set up with the dock on this side, so then it's just touching just this basic elastic strap. If the dock was down here, it would kind of be touching the rough Velcro. So overall, I do like these cases, except there is one part of the design that I don't really get. That being, the spot where the system sits in both this deep case as well as the other basic case, if you put just the bare Switch 2 in here without any sort of case or anything on it, it will just slide around. There is enough empty space in here to where the console will just slide around, it's very slight, but I don't like it. And even the Amazon listing shows how there is a little gap. I mean, like, not just a little gap. Previous Switch cases, that wasn't an issue. I know this is an OLED in a case that's meant for the original Switch, but this was still the case when I had the original Switch. It just doesn't move. Like, it is very much so locked in here. Same deal with the exact case that I used with the Switch OLED. It just locks in there. Actually, with this case, there is like a very slight amount of wiggle, but nowhere near as bad as these RDS cases. And that is why, if you've noticed, my Switch 2 has a sort of clear case on it. For reference, yes, this is Moomba's clear case. The one thing I like about it is that you can kind of peel the case back, and then you're still able to detach the Joy-Con too. And same thing with the other. So why exactly would I want to do this? This particular case actually blocks the kickstand. The nice thing about these RDS cases is that the game card flap actually serves as a tabletop stand. So then I'm not actually sacrificing much of the system's original functionality. I can still play in tabletop mode if I want, not even just at this single angle. Both the game card flaps on this basic case as well as the deluxe deep case have this extra bit of Velcro, and so you can anchor it in the lid of the case if you need more of a shallow angle. And so because you can get more granular like that, I don't think it's really sacrificing any of the basic functionality of the system. And so, like, I do understand wanting to make cases that can accommodate for a clear case like this, but RDS doesn't necessarily advertise that on any of the product listings. Because yeah, again, this is where the system sits. Go ahead and drop it in, and it does not slide around whatsoever. And same thing with the deluxe deep case. Just go ahead and drop it in. And actually with this, there is still a little bit of sliding around, but because it is in a clear case, that's not really that big of a deal. Also, that's probably why RDS has the little wells for the Joy-Con straps under the system, because they really make these cases under the guise of, yeah, you're gonna have a case on your system, even though they don't necessarily clearly advertise that. The case can protect the system from any sort of little, like, micro scratches or scuffs that the Joy-Con straps underneath the system would cause. It does get really weird though, because again, these cases come with these foam bumpers, which come with little 3M adhesive strips to where you can affix them in here semi-permanently to keep these just as a basic Switch or Switch OLED case. And with the bumpers, I put them in upside down. And with these bumpers, a Switch OLED just kind of locks in perfectly. So they anticipate that if you're using this with a Switch, or Switch OLED maybe more specifically, you're not going to be using any sort of clear case, but with a Switch 2 you will be. That weird design decision aside, I still really like these cases because they feel nice and sturdy and durable. I feel comfortable even throwing this just with my clothes, like in my big like duffel bag or in a carry-on if I was flying with this. And speaking of, having both of these cases does actually solve a weirdly specific to me travel issue that I've had with the Switch, really ever since I had my first system. If I'm the passenger in, let's say, a road trip, I don't need to have the dock accessible, so this can stay in my clothes bag, but I can still have the system itself ready and accessible to play on the way to and back. And then, of course, I would have the dock accessible when I get to the destination. But what if you want to bring an extra controller, maybe a Pro Controller and extra Joy-Con. Well, RDS makes that as well? Yeah, so this is technically made for the original Switch controllers, but if we unzip it, you can see that I actually have my Switch 2 Pro Controller in here, still with a set of original Joy-Con. I know it looks like that the Pro Controller is sitting on the Joy-Con, but I did take a flashlight and like really look underneath here. They are kind of just barely not touching. Even with the Pro Controller pushed down all the way, they are still not touching, so that's actually pretty good design there. And then up here, you can fit a USB cable for whatever controller, or you can put the Joy-Con grip in here. And I also just have a little mesh thing for putting the Joy-Con straps. Because yeah, there's no zipper here, and so I would feel worried that this shifting around the straps would kind of make their way to this open area and just start messing up the Pro Controller. Although having this extra mesh pouch in here does kind of make closing the case a little bit more difficult. But anyways, having a separate Pro Controller that is in its own case means that if you get to your destination and you don't want the dock, but you still want to play in tabletop mode with a Pro Controller, well then you wouldn't even have to pull out your dock. And yeah, I know that I have the AC adapter in the Deluxe Deep case. That's actually not the AC adapter that came with my Switch 2. I bought a second official one. Disregarding if you're actually as insane as I am, you don't necessarily have to use the official charger for the Switch 2. There's plenty of high-powered USB-C chargers out there, although I specifically got a second official adapter because it is also designed to straight up charge the Pro Controller and the Joy-Con charging grip without it needing to be plugged into the dock. Like, you can just plug this into the wall like normal, plug in the cable, then plug the cable into the controller just right from the wall. It is designed to do that. And the original Switch charger was also designed to charge its Pro Controller and its Joy-Con charging grip. Although you can actually use that original Switch charger to directly charge the Switch 2, it is powerful enough to do that. And so I imagine you could also use that to charge the Pro Controller to and the charging grip too. Although don't quote me on that. But using the official charger like this means that I don't need the dock at all to charge the controllers, which maybe don't need as high of a voltage as the system itself. So it may almost be a better idea to keep the AC adapter separate from everything else and just put the HDMI cable in the Deluxe Deep case. And even if I was, traveling with the Switch 2, I may still use this spot to carry the Switch OLED as well. Just because of virtual game card stuff. That's a discussion for more of a proper in-depth video about the Switch 2 itself, like my experience with it. Basically, having both systems with me would make things so much easier for managing virtual game cards between the two, because I am still planning on keeping the Switch OLED for a couple years until larger capacity microSD express cards are available, because not all of my stuff fits on the Switch 2, so any games that don't fit on the Switch 2 are still loaded and downloaded onto the Switch OLED. And because each Switch is intercompatible with the other's charger if you're just plugging it in directly, I can just plug this directly into the Switch OLED to still top it up. Although, let's be honest, I would probably still bring the covert dock for this as well, just in case if I wanted to dock this, because they're not compatible with each other's docks. So having everything kind of separated into its own case means that just for the initial stint of a trip, I could have just the basic case in whatever main backpack I'm carrying, and be able to play it just like in the car and whatever, as long as I'm a passenger and I'm not actually the one driving. But let's say that initial car trip was to an airport. Well then, I could also throw this controller case in with my backpack, so then I could play tabletop mode on the plane with a Pro Controller, because the new Pro Controller, the sticks are like silent. ASMR demo. So then I really wouldn't be bothering anyone nearby because I would also be using headphones. Plus, if I had either this AC adapter or one of my various high-powered USB-C adapters, then I could also charge the system in tabletop mode when it's using like the case's kickstand, because you know the Switch 2 has a top USB-C port. All the while, the Switch 2 dock and my Switch OLED can live in my carry-on bag. Basically, having an extra Pro controller be in its own case makes that sort of flexibility during travel just that little bit better. And you know, it goes along with the design philosophy of the Switch, that being, you know, flexible yet portable gaming. Yes, at some point I'm planning on doing more of an in-depth video about the Switch 2 itself. I just want to do this quick video about these RDS cases. Anywho, that'll be it for me for now. We'll see you later.